A new American-sponsored ceasefire is afloat, and it's part and parcel of a much larger American initiative taking form, being hailed as the Biden Doctrine. You can read all about it in Thomas Friedman's latest article in the New York Times called "A Biden Doctrine for the Middle East is Forming and It's Big." Now, before some of you dismiss the article, both because its writer and newspaper are a part of the establishment, I would counsel you to pay attention for that very reason. Because Thomas Friedman is believed not only to have the Biden administration's ear, but even more so is believed to be directly channeling the administration's voice. This is consistent with past American administrations of all stripes and hues who had their person or persons in the media through whom they chose to address the public rather than by the conventional means of press conferences and official proclamations before TV cameras. As it relates to this present administration's foreign policy-related machinations in general, regarding Israel and the Middle East specifically, Thomas Friedman is believed to be that man. Now, as it relates to both the ceasefire proposal that is afloat and the larger peace initiative spoken of in Friedman's article, there are many moving parts, and I'm going to try my best to bring them into focus in this update on the fly. First, as it pertains to the ceasefire, the United States, Egypt, and Qatar are trying to press Israel and Hamas to agree to a three-stage ceasefire. In the first stage, an immediate ceasefire would commence in which a hostage is released for each day of the ceasefire, likely to be 6 weeks in duration. Israel's demanding that priority be given to the release of the remaining children, non-military women, severely wounded civilians taken captive on October 7, and the elderly during this initial stage. In a second stage, Israel would agree to prisoner releases in exchange for the female Israeli soldiers taken captive on October 7. There is unclarity concerning how many Palestinian prisoners and the quality of those prisoners, i.e., concerning the gravity of past atrocities and terror attacks that they participated in, but some agreement concerning the likely number to be released, roughly 250 Palestinian prisoners for every Israeli female soldier taken captive. The third and final stage of this purported ceasefire proposal is the most foggy and up to conjecture. It's here where things get dicey. Hamas is demanding that Israel end the war entirely and withdraw all of its forces from Gaza to their pre-October 7 positions, while Netanyahu, for his part, is insisting that the war be restarted at the termination of the stipulated ceasefire period, as was the case regarding the previous ceasefire back in November. Now, this is where things get interesting. Hamas is demanding international guarantees that Israel won't be allowed to restart the war, and Biden seems to be whispering in their ear such assurances that when the long period of ceasefire ends, he, Biden, will basically make it impossible for Israel to restart the war. It's also been said that Hamas is insisting that its leadership in the Gaza Strip be left intact, whereas Israel's insisting that its top 6 leaders agree to go into exile if their lives are to be spared at all. Where the Biden administration stands regarding this issue is up in the air. If Israel were to agree to a total cessation of hostilities and withdrawal of its forces to the pre-October 7 positions, this would be rightly seen as an Israeli defeat, as well as put Israel at an immediate and major strategic disadvantage vis-a-vis its more dangerous and capable regional enemies, such as Hezbollah and Iran. Speaking of which, this is how the above scenario dovetails with the Biden Doctrine that I mentioned at the outset of this video. According to Thomas Friedman's article, the proposed ceasefire I just spoke about is one of the many moving parts in Biden's larger strategic calculus. According to Friedman, this calculus includes the immediate American recognition of a Palestinian state, normalization of ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and the neutralizing of the Iranian threat. That latter item, the neutralizing of Iran, is supposed to commence in the next few hours or days with a broad American attack on many of Iran's militias and proxies in the region. But importantly, it does not include an attack on Iran itself. How this is to remove the Iranian threat without attacking Iran itself remains largely enigmatic. But the Biden administration sees each of these three parts of its plan: Palestinian statehood, peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and the neutralizing of Iran as mutually dependent. In other words, neither of the three can happen without the successful outcome of the other two. Now, I said there were many moving parts, and I've mentioned several above. What remains to be said concerns those moving parts within Israel domestically. Two important members of Netanyahu's governing coalition, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, have threatened to bolt this coalition, which would presage its total collapse if they perceive that Bibi is not all in regarding his total victory over Hamas rhetoric. If they perceive that he is capitulating to American pressure to end the war, they will bolt his government, causing it to fall, and he himself will now become vulnerable to criminal cases that have been brought against him and which carry potential jail time. His remaining in power, therefore, is critical not only for his personal political fortunes, but for his very freedom. Anyway, as I said, very important big things are afloat. The Middle East may be poised to take a very important turn in its unfolding history with all the prophetic implications that entails also. This is Steve, the tour guide, reporting. Thanks for your time and have a great day.